Good morning, everyone. Today we'll be discussing the head and neck. This is the last topic before your prelim exam. So for the head and neck, the term used collectively to describe the extracranial structures are the sinonasal cavity, the skull base, the pharynx, oral cavity, larynx, neck, orbit, and temporal bone. So these are the structures that you will encounter when we are talking about the head and neck. And these are your extracranial structures. For the imaging methods, both multi-slice helical CT scan and MRI can provide exquisite imaging of the normal and pathologic anatomy of the head and neck. So when we are looking for a pathology of the head and neck, your CT scan and MRI will give you detailed information about the head and neck. CT scan is the modality of choice when looking for calcifications or lithiasis or for detection of fractures. When you are entertaining lithiasis or calcifications and fractures, CT scan is the imaging of choice. Even in the area of your abdomen, when you're entertaining lithiasis, CT scan is the modality of choice. And then MRI, it provides outstanding sensitivity for soft tissue discrimination. It often demonstrates full extent of the pathology. When you are entertaining soft tissue pathology, you will request for an MRI. Then your positron emission tomography, it increases sensitivity and specificity in the evaluation of primary and recurrent malignancies in combination with either CT or MR imaging. So with the help of your CT and MRI, your positron emission tomography will help you evaluate the primary and recurrent malignancies. Paranasal sinuses and nasal cavity. Sinusitis is the most common pathology. This is an inflammatory disease, and imaging findings include mild mucosal thickening, primarily within the maxillary and ethmoid sinuses. So the most common sinuses that are involved is your maxillary and ethmoid sinuses. For the difference of acute sinusitis and chronic sinusitis in imaging, for acute sinusitis, it is characterized by the presence of air fluid levels, while in chronic sinusitis, there is mucoperiosteal thickening and osseous thickening of the sinus walls. In acute sinusitis, there is foamy appearing sinus secretions, and soft tissue findings in acute sinusitis is best visualized in your T2-weighted imaging, which appears hyper-intense. And your acute sinusitis is caused by viral upper respiratory tract infection. While in chronic sinusitis, the secretions are desiccated, so there's no signal in your MRI study. So this is an example, X-ray of the acute sinusitis and chronic sinusitis. So in acute sinusitis, you can see in here, in the right maxillary sinus, that there is air fluid leveling, which is a sign of your acute sinusitis. And in chronic sinusitis, there is mucoperiosteal thickening and osseous thickening of the sinus wall. So this is your Waters view, which is best in the evaluation of your maxillary sinuses. So another example, CT scan eggshell view and MRI eggshell view, showing you the imaging findings of acute sinusitis. So there is air fluid leveling in the left maxillary sinus, indicative of acute sinusitis. And also in here, there is air fluid leveling also in MRI study in eggshell view in the right maxillary sinus. While in chronic sinusitis, this is a coronal view of a CT scan showing you mucoperiosteal thickening and osseous thickening of the sinus wall. Okay, so in here there is this is an eggshell CT scan view showing you also mucoperiosteal thickening and osseous thickening of the sinus wall, which is indicative of your chronic sinusitis. So what are the common complications of sinusitis? It can result to inflammatory polyps, mucus retention cyst, mucocils, and even cavernous sinus thrombosis. For the inflammatory polyps, so it is a result of chronic inflammation resulting to mucosal hyperplasia and then mucosal redundancy and eventually hair polyp formation. It is most often blend imperceptibly with mucoperiosteal thickening and cannot be clearly delineated. So remember that your mucoperiosteal thickening is a feature or findings in your chronic sinusitis. And sometimes the inflammatory polyps cannot be clearly differentiated from mucoperiosteal thickening. And then we have the what we call antrochoanal polyp. It is an antral polyp. It expands to the point where it prolapses through the sinus ostium. It is a soft tissue mass extending from the maxillary sinus to fill the ipsilateral nasal cavity and nasopharynx. So your sinus ostium, it is a common channel that links the frontal sinus, the anterior ethmoidal air cells, and the maxillary sinus to the middle meatus, allowing airflow and mucociliary drainage. So this is the common channel, your sinus ostium. And next is the sinonasal polyposis. So this is an example of sinonasal polyposis in your axial CT scan and then coronal CT scan. So again, we have the sinus ostium, which is the common channel which links the frontal sinus, the ethmoid air cells, the maxillary sinus to the middle meatus, which allows airflow and mucociliary drainage. Then next is the mucus retention cyst. It represents obstructed mucous glands within the mucosal lining. It has a characteristic rounded appearance, measuring 1 to several centimeters in diameter. And the most commonly involved sinus is the maxillary sinus. So this is an example of mucus retention cyst. Again, it is a round, well-defined round structure in the area of the maxillary sinus, in the right maxillary sinus in your axial T1 MRI. So it appears hypointense. And then in T2 MRI, axial view, it appears hyperintense. So this is an example of your mucus retention cyst in the right maxillary sinus. Then next is the mucocele. It is similar to mucus retention cyst, but instead of being confined to the single mucus gland, the lesion expands to the point where the entire sinus becomes obstructed. It typically occurs because of a mass obstructing the draining ostium, and it has the characteristic findings of frank expansion of the sinus with associated sinus wall bony thinning and remodeling. And then the most commonly affected sinus is the frontal sinus. If in the mucus retention cyst, the most commonly involved sinus is the maxillary. So for the mucocele, the most commonly affected is the frontal sinus. So this is an example of your mucocele, showing you a frank expansion of the sinus in the left. This is your coronal T1 MRI and then coronal T2 MRI. An example of your mucocele. There is a obstructing mass in the left. Next is the cavernous sinus thrombosis. It is most commonly results from contiguous spread of infection from the sinuses or middle third of the face, or less commonly dental abscess or orbital cellulitis. This one is a rare condition, most commonly infectious in nature, and the diagnosis on imaging is not always straightforward. So meaning this is not easily diagnosed in imaging. Headache is the most common symptoms, about 85%. Then there is focal neurological signs, and or seizures may also occur. Then orbital signs can include chemosis or your periorbital swelling and exophthalmos. And then Staphylococcus aureus is the most common infectious microbe found in 50 to 60% of the cases. And with your MRI with contrast, this is the modality of choice to confirm its presence. So if you are entertaining cavernous sinus thrombosis as a complication of the sinusitis, so you will request for MRI with contrast for the evaluation of cavernous sinus thrombosis. So in MRI, this is an axial view showing you an example of your cavernous sinus thrombosis. Again, the diagnosis can generally be made on venography, MRI venography. The other complications of sinusitis include the subperiosteal abscess orbital extension because of its proximity to the orbital region. It may extend to the orbital region. And then intracranially, in MRI, you will find brain abscess, epidural abscess, subdural empyema, and sinus thrombosis. So this is an example of your subperiosteal and brain abscess. So this is your T1 post-contrast and then diffusion. So if you can see in post-contrast study, there is peripheral or rim enhancement of this area, of the mass in this area. Also in here, so there is peripheral enhancement and post-contrast study suggestive of an abscess in your T1 post-contrast study. So again, brain abscess, this is an axial CT scan and MRI axial view also, showing you an abscess in this area because after contrast injection, there is peripheral or rim enhancement of the mass, which is suggestive of brain abscess. If you can see in here, there is area of hypodensity, which is the edema, okay? Secondary to this lesion, secondary to the abscess. While in here, there is hyperdensity, suggestive also of edema, secondary to the brain abscess. Then orbital cellulitis, as you can see, there is thickening in the area of the orbit, suggestive of the orbital cellulitis. And in here also, as you can see, as pointed by the arrow, there is abscess in this area in your coronal MRI, showing you orbital cellulitis and abscess. Then the tumors and tumor-like diseases. So it includes inverting papilloma, juvenile nasopharyngeal angiofibromas, and then malignancies. The most common is your SCC or squamous cell carcinoma. For the inverting papilloma, this is a neoplastic nasal epithelium, inverts and grows into the underlying mucosa. These papillomas are not believed to be associated with allergy or chronic infections because they are almost invariably unilateral in location. They occur exclusively on the lateral nasal wall, centered on the hiatus semilunaris. And it has increased association with squamous cell carcinoma. So if the patient has inverting papilloma, if you diagnose the patient of having inverting papilloma, so it increased the risk of having squamous cell carcinoma. Then inverted papillomas account for approximately 0.5 to 4% of all the nasal tumors and are most frequently seen in patients 40 to 60 years of age with male predilection. So the presentation can be similar to other sinonasal masses with the presence of nasal obstruction, sinus pain, and epistaxis. So again, the inverted papilloma, it is most commonly occur on the lateral wall of the nasal cavity, most frequently related to the middle turbinate or middle meatus and maxillary ostium. So this is your osteomeatal complex or unit. So what are the components of the osteomeatal complex or unit? So it includes the maxillary ostium, the ethmoid infundibulum, the hiatus semilunaris, and the middle meatus. So this is where you will see it in your coronal view of the CT scan. This is the area of the osteomeatal complex and unit. Just have to remember the component of this unit. Okay, so and then you will better see it in your coronal CT scan in this area. So this is an example of your coronal CT scan and coronal MRI. So in here, there is a left sinonasal mass, okay, centered on the middle turbinate with the pacification of the left maxillary sinus. In here, there is no bony destruction or exostosis seen. While it is in this one, MR coronal view, there is a mass with alternating roughly parallel lines of high and low signal intensity in the left. Okay, so there's a mass in this area with alternating parallel lines of high and low signal intensity. So this is a T2 coronal MRI. The left maxillary The left maxillary sinus contains small amount of tumor but contains fluid as the osteomeatal complex is obstructed by the papilloma. So this is the area of osteomeatal complex, and this is your left maxillary sinus. Then inverted papilloma. So this is a T2 weighted image, the first image, coronal view, which confirms the cystic element as pointed by the arrow. And then this one is a coronal CT scan demonstrating remodeling of the bone and expansion as pointed by these arrows. So this is an example of your inverted papilloma. So this is T1, also T1 in coronal and T1 with contrast. So in MRI, it often demonstrates a distinctive appearance referred to as a convoluted cerebriform pattern seen in both T2 and contrast-enhanced T1 weighted imaging. This represents alternating lines of high and low signal intensity, the appearance of which has been likened to, albeit loosely, cerebral cortical gyrations. So it appears like your cerebral cortical gyration. So this is the so-called convoluted cerebriform pattern seen in your T2 or T1 post-contrast. So in T2, it is generally hyper-intense to muscle, and it will also appear as a alternating hypo-intense lines. And in T1, post-contrast like this one, it has a heterogeneous enhancement, and there is also alternating hypo-intense lines. The next is the juvenile nasopharyngeal angiofibromas. So it is typically seen in male adolescents presenting with epistaxis. The tumor arises from fibrovascular stroma of the nasal wall adjacent to the sphenopalatine foramen. It is benign, but they are very locally aggressive. And classically, the tumor fills the nasopharynx and bows the posterior wall of the maxillary sinus forward. And then the retromaxillary pterygopalatine fossa location is a hallmark feature for the juvenile nasopharyngeal angiofibromas. And after your contrast administration, the tumor will enhance markedly. So this JNA or juvenile nasopharyngeal angiofibromas are a rare benign but they are locally aggressive vascular tumor. They occur almost exclusively in males and usually in adolescent period. They account for only 0.5% of all the head and neck tumors, but they are the most common of the benign nasopharyngeal neoplasms. So this is the area of your pterygopalatine fossa, which is the hallmark of your JNA. Okay, so this is the area where your JNA occurred, or this is the hallmark. And then for the anatomy, so the adjacent structures are the pterygomaxillary fissure, the sphenopalatine foramen in here, and in this area is the foramen lacerum. Okay, so this is an axial CT scan showing you the pterygopalatine fossa in here, which is the landmark for your JNA. So another example, axial CT scan, the pterygopalatine fossa. And in here is the zoom version. Okay, so the palatine, the pterygoid process of the sphenoid, and this is the area of the maxilla. This one is the pterygopalatine fossa in here. So this one, the A and C images, this is a coronal and axial CT scan showing you an example of JNA. And this one are juvenile nasopharyngeal angiofibroma. And then this one is the B and D images naman. This is early post-operative CT scan. As you can see, there is no enhancement at the preoperative location, this one. There's no enhancement post-contrast. And in this area, in BND, there is hemostatic material mixed with blood seen in this area post-operatively. Okay, so there is a component of hemostatic material na mixed with blood in the post-operative. So in here also, as you can see, there is an example of your JNA also in axial CT scan. Also in here, axial CT scan showing you example of your JNA. The next is the malignancies. So squamous cell carcinoma is the most common, 80 to 90%, often clinically silent until it is quite advanced. So you will recognize it until it is quite advanced or symptomatic na yung patient. So early symptoms are related to obstructive sinusitis. So usually there will be obstruction, and then that's the time you will detect the malignancy. And then imaging findings will include a pacified sinus with associated bony wall destruction. So in here, in squamous cell carcinoma, as part of the malignancy, you will recognize or you will find bony wall destruction. So this is an example of your squamous cell carcinoma in the right. As you can see in this coronal CT scan view, there is bony destruction. And also in here, in your axial CT scan, there is bony wall destruction. So I think this is the last slide for this lecture. Thank you.